Coaches, this is episode number 2 of the Tatum Clinic series. Today I have Coach Mike Hill, who is offensive coordinator at the Menlo School in California. Coach has been gracious to come on and talk about wide receiver play, something that I don't know much about, that I want to grow in that area. So he came on. He's going to talk about some wide receiver play. Coach, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks. Appreciate you, Coach. Man, we hooked up long time ago on Twitter and just
Yeah.
stayed connected. So I appreciate you circling back and allowing me to come on your show and just drop a few gems.
No doubt, yeah. So, like, as an offensive line guy, I guess outside of quarterback, it's kind of the farthest, I guess, away from the O line that you can get. So that's what I want to jump into. Hey, what are my weaknesses? Understanding more about wide receiver play. Now, I know some basics. I know enough to get guys in the right spots, but I want to deep dive because I've been told you are the guru. You are the guy in wide receiver play. So I'm gonna let you talk and run with it and let us know what we're doing with wide receivers.
Cool, man. So, just to state, man, I learned some things off your clinic last time about QB bash and counter, and we implemented that in our offense this year, and it was a
Awesome.
big success for us. So, and we got to learn off each other. We young coaches, and we probably do things a little bit unorthodox, but it's working, man, and we just got to keep riding that wave. I don't know if I'm a guru, but I do know a little bit about wide receiver play. I got lucky to playing college. Man, a lot of D1 offers coming out of college, and due to circumstance, I ended up going D2, and it was a humbling experience, and I kind of needed that at that time in my life. So got lucky, played arena ball for about 4 or 5 years, bouncing around. So one thing I know is wide receiver play. So I'll try to dive in, and show a PowerPoint and a few clips from our season here.
Heck yeah, let's get it.
Sure. So this is a PowerPoint I made. So just being on social media, I kind of just kept seeing things that I felt were just not helping wide receivers, especially young wide receiver coaches. So I came up with a PowerPoint, just and I called it anatomy of wide receiver play and route running. What I think the basic components are that each coach can build off, and then I will share the link to this PowerPoint, and you guys can make it your own and have your way with it. But it'll be a foundation for some coaches out there. So let me go to present screen and pull that up here. Here we go. So let's get into it. So anatomy of route running, I think is really important to connect the mind, body, and soul into running routes. I think different players have different abilities and different sizes. 6'5" tight end is going to run routes different, a little bit different from a 5'8" speedy slot receiver. So understanding how to run routes within your body. So we'll start here. So anatomy, the study of a structure and internal workings of something. And the question I pose is: think about route running structure. How do I really get open to run great routes? And there's some components that I'm super big on. Three big components in route running is your stance, right? And we'll go over all three in a little bit of depth in each. Your stance is super important. The next is the release that you're going to use to get off the ball, especially in man-to-man press coverages. Stacking after you release, right, to give yourself a four-way go. So as I'm working with receivers, training and in practice, at the school, you always hear me yelling stance, release, stack. So SRS is one of our buzzwords that we use within the wide receiver group. So let's just talk about the stance. And as the wide receivers get in the stance, and coaches, you can ask your players this, am I in a proper stance to explode off the ball? We want to explode off the ball. We want to give the DBs not a chance to, recover, get ready to even make a play on the ball. So first, check our stance. Is our stance balanced, right? Are our legs, shoulder width apart? Do we got a good stance? Is it 80% loaded on the front foot, 20% on the back? Is our stance stable? So as we work in stance, and especially in the off season, we'll get in the stance and I'll make them stand there for a while. And then I'll ask them, right, are you stable? If you are stable, you can stand in this position all day long, right? You might give them a few nudges and tugs around there to see if they really got a stable stance. And no false steps. False steps for me is anything behind the line of scrimmage that does not give us an advantage to, to get this DB moving off his mark. So no false steps, or some people call it negative steps, right? Not moving that front foot when we're exploding off the ball, not going behind the line of scrimmage and do a lot of dancing that we do see on social media, and have your hands ready to fight. I always say, unless you bigger and badder than everybody else, if you're 6'4" and 240 pounds and you got a little bitty DB in front of you, maybe you don't need your hands up because you can go ahead and push them out the way. But for the normal average receiver, have your hands ready to fight combat, right? Combat. DB's gonna punch, all right? Are we gonna go a punch move across, hit that elbow, punch move across? Or are we gonna hit the elbow and rip under? So be ready to fight. Be ready to fight, and stay ready so you don't got to get ready. The other question you can ask, a player or a coach can ask, is the stance too tight? Is the stance too long? Right? And my other, key coaching point is, pretend there's a big nail in the front of your foot, right? In the front of your foot that you got up in your wide receiver stance, and that thing should never come off the ground. You should use the power, right? Power momentum from that foot, and then explode off carrying that back foot for a positive game. Now let's talk about releases. So we got the stance. The next phase that we'll touch on is the release, right? In order to be a receiver, you got to get off the press. You got to get off the jam in order to win. So ask yourself, coaches, ask your players, what releases have I taught them? What releases do they know? When do you use a release? How to use a release? What release can I do? So I broke this down a little bit more into when to use a release. There is a primary point of contact, and I consider that at the line of scrimmage. Cover one, cover two, a DB right in your face, right, getting ready to jam. That is the primary point of contact. Then we move a little bit further down the field, and there's a secondary point of contact, right? So that may be an off-man coverage. Maybe they're in some type of quarters look. Maybe they play cover three bail technique. Another example is, if you're in the slot and the linebacker's pushing hook to curl. So that's a secondary point of contact beyond the original line of scrimmage. So knowing that we use the same releases, maybe a little bit different, but the same base releases at the primary point of contact and the secondary point of contact. And the next thing is, after you make that release, you got to close the cushion. So you got to get out and run. And you got to step on some toes, right? So close the cushion. Don't let the DB recover. And if you in a slot, don't let that linebacker try to ricochet or bracket you, right? Because they want to put hands on you. So now the other question I posed was, what type of release do you have in the toolbox, right? And I think at the high school level, right, and as you get a little bit further in college and professional, you can add a little bit more glamour to it, right? But for the most part, these are the releases that I feel are paramount to the success of a receiver at the high school level. So there's a speed release, there's a single jab, or some people call it the A step. There's the double jab, some people call it the B step, and there's also a split release. So those are the few that I like to spend majority of my time on, and even more so if I had to break it down, the top three I'm spending at least 80% of my time on, and I'll get into speed releases and a few more advanced releases just for they can have the tools. But for the most part, speed release. Speed release. When do I want to use a speed release? When you see a flat-footed DB, a slow DB, a not very good DB, right? And you can just make an outside or inside move, stepping with your back foot forward, changing levels, getting skinny, right? Reducing the surface of contact, and then fly by them. So we want to use a speed release when we got a flat-footed, slow DB. This guy's not very good. I'm better than him. We're just going to get in and go, right? We're going to step to the outside or inside and get up out of there. So a coaching point when working a speed release, what not a lot of people do, change levels. You got to change levels. You got to get skinny. You got to reduce the surface. You change levels by dipping that shoulder. So if we go an outside speed release to our left, I will be dipping with my right shoulder, getting skinny, changing that surface, and then stepping back over to stack. So that's what I mean by changing levels. DB's gonna punch. We want to avoid that punch and go. The next progression or the next release is the single jab. So we want to use the single jab as when the DB is opposite of where we want to go, and we just want to create a little bit more space as we're running this route. So just to keep it as an outside release, as if we run in vertical. Uh, Wide receivers on the line, the DB is playing inside shade, inside technique on the receiver. Yes, we can just run right by him, but that allows the DB to get hands on you, right? It's easy to close that gap when there's nothing threatening them right or left. So we always take one step towards the DB to make him open up his hip to think that we're going slant, post, dig, anything going inside. And now we're working back outside. So we're stepping opposite of where we want to go. We're getting up out of there on the outside. So that's our single jab. So the point of emphasis there is stick and go, right, and get up out of there. Now the double jab, this takes a little bit more practice because this is when a DB is where you want to go. So for example, if we have a post route, and for me, I'm teaching if we're breaking inside, post, dig, curl, drag, we need to get inside on our release right away, right? I don't think that DBs, unless you are, a 10-5 track guy, should be blowing past guys on the outside running the post, right? So the higher you get in the levels, the better competition you play. The kids are just as fast. Um, so double jab, the teaching point is where I want to go. I want to take an inside release. So I'm first going to step there. I'm going to go in with our right leg, out with our left leg, and back inside to the right. So as I'm coaching this, I'm going in, out, in. 1, 2, 3. In, out, in. Right. So now they get the progression and they get the rhythm. That's what I want to do. Bump, bump, bump. I want to get in depth, right? Pressing this DB vertically as I'm creating my space. Now, if you think about it in basketball terms, and we're talking about crossovers, right? They like this. You're working. We want that DB to be working too, right? As if they guarding you on the basketball court. If you go right, they go right. You go left, they go left. But we know that we are just setting them up just to get back inside. So we're going in, out, in, bump. Now we got our release. The next thing is we work in our progression, right? We got our stance, we got our release. Now we get back on top and we stack every single time. We don't want the DB to recover. So double jab, in, out, in, stack, and then continue to run the route. Now let's talk about a split release. Sprint release is, some people don't teach it, but I actually like it. Just playing arena ball, and we had a lot of high motions and guys in the CFL that I work with, right? You come in loop motion and high motion. That means you get a running start from, 5, 10 yards back. It's sometimes hard to predicate what release you're going to do. So the sprint release allows you to make that move at the line of scrimmage, or if stationary, you don't have to make a decision right now. It'll be based on where the DB goes. So it's kind of like, playing tag. Somebody trying to tag you that way, you going this way. Somebody trying to tag you this way, you're going that way. So you get even at the line of scrimmage. You give yourself a two-way go. You start rocking right, left, make that DB move a little bit. And once he moves too much, he or she, but once they move too much, you get in and go. So, just an example that we had here is even press, come to balance, work your foot fire, rock, and then take the open lane. And this is also a great release against patient DBs, against skilled DBs with great technique who don't panic when they impress. Split release allows you to, get them moving a little bit more. And in all releases, man, split release, we come to even balance, but we're not working negative. So we still at that line of scrimmages. Attack the DB vertical, get them to open up, make them make a false move, and allows us to win. So the coaching point there is attack vertical, no negative steps. As we're working here, so I briefly talked about stacking. So let me just give you my definition of stacking is after getting past the point of contact and in front of the defender, you put the defender behind your butt, right, and put them in chase position. This gives a receiver a four-way go, right? So the DB and it's probably a little bit more than 4-way go. We can run a lot of routes out of this, but if the DB is stacked vertically behind you because you did what you're supposed to do during this release and stack, they don't know if you're going to run vertical. They don't know if you're going to run a post. They don't know if you're going to run an out, and they don't know if you're going to run an in, and anywhere in between, right? I just kept it at those four with the 4-way go. This puts a defender in panic mode. Not a lot of DBs are even trained at the high school level to play in trail technique and chase technique and be comfortable. So I feel like the defenders are in panic mode and they have to make a decision. Now, given that we got a 4-way go here, the DB can only be right one time, right? And he's gonna have to take whatever decision he makes and live with it. But us as a receiver, right? We know all our four options, so we got a 3/4 chance to win. Right? So it's a 3/4 chance that this DB is going to be wrong, and I like the odds of that if we stack. So I think another point of emphasis that's neglected is using the stem. So a stem for me, right, and everybody has the different definition, is if a defender is lying inside or outside and off the ball, we want to attack that defender's leverage while running at an angle, right? We want to get parallel, so stack them even. So now we can work the releases that we already talked about, right? So the same releases that we're using at the line of scrimmage, now we're using at the secondary point of contact with the stem, right? So we're getting parallel in line with the defender, and we're getting in proper technique for a release, right? And as we're doing this will eliminate DB undercuts, right? So, example, if you're running an in route, 10 or 15 yards, and DB is off man or off zone with inside leverage, and you don't stem him as you run that in, that DB is going to break on the ball. And as I tell our players, you're going to be chasing his jersey, right? So if we stem, right, we get inside. Now we're parallel and we're even. Right now we even. Now we can work the release, right? And we can get inside and we can keep that defender on our tail. So stemming is truly important. It's something that you should rep in your everyday drill. It's something that you should rep within your scheme so people know when to stem and how to stem. So there's some quick notes on this PowerPoint here. So some key notes: stance, release, stack, first press man, right? That's our rules to die by. Stance, release, stack. Now, if we got off man, zone, inside leverage, it may be a little bit different. It may get a little mixed up here. It may be stance, stem, release, stack, right? It also may be stance, stem, stack, right? Like you never know what it's going to be when it's an off man, but at least you have the bases: stance, stem, release, stack, stance, release, stack, right? Depending on how we go. There's some other coaching points. And I think don't neglect these type of things in practice. It's a slippery slope. So always push the depth, right? If you got a 15-yard comeback, don't break it at 10 yards. It's going to mess up the timing. It can lead to turnovers. It can lead to failed conversions on 3rd and 4th down. And just hop on top of that early. So knowing the landmarks, knowing where you got to be, knowing where you should be running this route is so important and so neglected at the high school level. So the last point is know your landmarks. If you got a corner route and mine may be different, are you working to the back pylon? Are you working to the front pylon? Are you breaking flat? Where do I need to be? So give your guys landmarks or where they should be aiming their body to. It's very easy when we're on even yard lines, 5, 10, 15, but it gets a little murky when we start getting in those numbers in between. So knowing landmarks is very important. As I come to a conclusion on this one, most importantly, catch the ball. You got to catch the ball, man. If you can't catch the ball, just play DB. So that's the short and sweet version of route autonomy here that I wanted to share with you guys. And we'll transition into a little more depth about wide receiver play. Hang on one second. Let me get back to the screen here. Coach, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, cool. So we did post this. We post this question on Twitter. Like, what did people want to talk about, and I mean, what do people want to hear? So we'll go into that. 1 second. Let me get one more place here. All right, cool. So let me see if I can stop screen sharing for a second. Cool. Yep. So rules of 3 rules of wide receiver play that I got and that I kind of live by is no block, no rock. Right? If you're not blocking, then you're not gonna play, and you're damn sure not gonna get the ball. Right? So we're not gonna award loafs and missed assignments and things like that. And if they're not going to block, you might as well just put a lineman out there, and at least you know they're going to try to block. So if they're not blocking, they just can't play because you become a liability. And this can cause some ruffles and feather. The player that knows the most plays the most, right? If you know the plays within my system, at least, you will play. I don't care how good the next person is, right? And he might be better than you, but he's not pushing to his landmark. He's not getting off the ball. He's not getting the depth on routes because some of the routes blend with each other, right? If you think about mesh, we need that mesh to be hitting that 5 to 7 yards. And if he doesn't know what he's doing, he can't play. So I'd rather have little Johnny out there who may not be as good, but for the sake of the scheme, he'll be in the right place. So the player that knows the most plays the most. And then, I mean, kind of what I mentioned in the PowerPoint here is catch the ball or we're going to run the ball, right? We got options to do both. And if you can't catch it, we damn sure going to figure out how to way to run it, right? We're going to run counter. We're going to run QB bash. We're going to run speed option. And we're still going to get positive yards. So it's fun to pass the ball, but it's fun to win games, right? So however that plays out, that's what we're going to do. So that's the 3 rules for me. Let me look here. So,
Coach, I got one question.
Absolutely.
So, not throwing any shade, but obviously we know the elephant in the room, receivers are divas, for the most part. So when you get to the point where no block, no rock, like what is that conversation like? But do you find that maybe early on in camp or maybe come out of 7-on-7, maybe you're having to restructure how you are doing things with guys because it's passes, and now
right.
now we're running it. So now whatever it is, distribution wise, 50-50 pass run. Right. Now you have to block sometime. Now you're going to be, catching balls. How do you kind of refocus them going into the season?
Absolutely. So that goes into your offseason, building your installs, right? You're building the installing scheme. If you're working on counter, you better have the receivers working on blocking, right? Like they got to be married. If you're working on screen game, now the receivers working screen game, right? If you're working pass game, they're working pass. So those have to be married concepts within your install and how you're working it. And yeah, day one, you gotta, be blocking on bags, right? You gotta block on bags. You gotta block with no pads. You gotta make sure that their arms are inside tight, right? That they have a square base and they're able to move with the DB. So you got to start day one. And after we wrapped it and we practiced this and we beyond that, and you not doing that, then the expectation is already set. You know how Coach Mike is, and he gonna get the tripping, right? So there it is. And then and what we do each week within the season and the install, if we having a run base day, we will have some type of blocking drill within that. We do live team blocking. I call it assembly line blocking, and then we're in 2x2. Linemen are live, and we go on 1-on-1. So 2 receivers on the left side will work jet sweep left. So we're getting live blocking by both, and also your teammates are seeing you, so they holding you accountable too, right? So it's not like I'm just pulling you out the game, but you showed constantly that you didn't have the desire to block. So and then the position coaches got to be on it too, because I'm gonna be on their ass too when they start messing up. So everybody has to be accountable for their position, for their effort, and then it's our responsibility as coaches to teach the technique.
Yeah, when I was first coming up as a coach, our strength and conditioning coach was a receiver coach. So probably second or third day during camp, he would send me all his receivers and
Oh
I would
yeah.
teach them blocking. Like he would do it himself, but he's like, "Hey, go to the O line coach," and I would send them
Yeah.
my guys, and they would do conditioning. So like we would
Right.
flip flop, and they were like, "Hey, go get blocking from the blocking guy."
Yeah.
Then when we come back to me, now we're gonna learn receiver blocking, like stalking and different stuff like that.
Right. Right.
Not,
Right.
but you went through a whole O line clinic basically with him.
Yeah.
Now come over
Yeah.
here and be a receiver. So we
Right.
used to do that.
That's a good idea, man. But I think that's part of building your staff. You got to have different type of guys on your staff that have different type of strengths and abilities. You know what I mean? Like, uh, I've been blessed to have a pretty good staff, and then our staff fell apart a little bit during our off season, and luckily for me, I was just learning O line play. That's what I spent my whole off season on, so I was able to teach it. I mean, I couldn't talk it, right,
Yeah,
and everything, but I can teach it for the most part. So, um, and now I'm glad that we got a staff, right? We got some young coaches, but we're building them, and they got some abilities that I don't have, right? Just from being younger and fresher from playing the game. So building the staff is important, at least on your side of the ball.
no doubt.
Let me see here really quick. So one of the questions, let's talk about everyday drills. So going back to this PowerPoint in which that we're talking about stances, right? And how important is for having a stance. So every day in our wide receiver group, we're working stance starts. So I'm checking a stance, 3 at a time, 4 at a time. And I'm checking a stance and I'm seeing if they have a proper stance. And I'll ask our teammates, do we like this? Thumbs up, thumbs down. And I'll have early in the season have guys correct him. What don't you like? His legs too tight. He's too close. His arms are down. Right. So now they understand. Like, okay, now you get what Coach Mike is trying to instill in you guys. And then so we work. I call it stand start. So just 5 yard intervals. Working off the say the 5 yard line, burst in 5 yards. And as they burst in 5 yards, I'm not looking at the top of their body. I'm literally looking at their ankles down, right? Is that front foot moving backwards prior to him going forward? Or is it rooted in the ground and his back foot carrying? Now they're getting positive steps as they go on. So we'll do that twice, there and back. Then our next one, when we get back, now we'll work speed release, right? Speed release down 5 yards. Come back, speed release the other way, 5 yards. We'll pop into the next one, single jab, right? And we stepping, going 5 yards. Opposite way, step, go 5 yards. Then we're coming back to the double. So every day we're working at. Like that's how you start. If I'm not even on the practice field, our seniors, our junior leaders, they already know what time it is. Go get it done, right? And that's when you really got it going with the EDDs. You don't have to even be there because you did it so much that they know what to do. So we always go stand, start every day every day. One thing that I start adding in is something I call confidence catches, and that's literally so some people deal with drops. Drops happen. Drops are contagious. So something I came up with about 4 years ago, at it when I was at a different school is just play catch. It's just a catch and throw, like the receiver's running, 50%, and just play catch for a little bit, right? We were, how people work, fade routes. I just want the quarterback just to or the receiver coach just to catch and throw. And I think that's contagious. Now our mind is working. Okay, yeah, I done caught 10 balls before it's time to go to live drills, right? So my confidence is up. So we always do confidence catches. We do have a jug machine. We got, pre-practice, get on the jug. So I'm into catching a lot of balls. So if they catching 50 to 100 balls, maybe not live rep, but just in without the course of the day, that works great strides in the long run. So as we're going through our EDDs, we got our releases, we worked our confidence catches. Now we got point of emphasis drill. What are we trying to accomplish today? Now if we are working out routes, 15-yard digs, 15-yard outs. We run a lot of 15-yard outs and floods. So I call something called exploding 90s. And I'll show you this drill here on a PowerPoint. What I've learned being a OC for a few years now. Sometimes you get younger coaches, make them a PowerPoint, make them a diagram, so they know exactly what you want out of the drill, so you don't have to be there the entire time. Give me 1 second, Coach. Let me see if I can pull this up on the Google here.
Yep.
And I call it exploding 90s. And I think you can make up any, you can make drill names whatever you want, whatever people can remember.
There we go.
How about,
Yep,
can you see
got
it
it.
now? So this is a drill I call
Yep.
exploded 90s. And this is just working, what it said, 90-degree cuts, and we're exploding out of that. Now, what you can do at the top here, we have a chute. I made one at Home Depot. I'm not really a Bob the Builder type of guy, but I made the chute at Home Depot. It cost me about 15 to 20 bucks. And I start with one foot inside the chute here, and literally we're just working top of the route stuff. So it's just step, explode to the sidelines, right? And as we do this, and I'll explain the drill a little bit more after I show you this, that's phase one, right? We're working man cut. So if you look on the side here, hash the numbers. We're working man cuts on the first break. So that's making sure that we planting off our outside foot, getting the gather step, exploding off our inside foot if we're going working it out, and then zone cuts, right? And we speed and rolling to the outs. Then after 2 reps of no balls, then we go reps with a ball, right? So I don't want them focusing on catching the ball rather than the technique. So that's phase one. We'll go through that, 4 times through there. Then we'll go to phase two. So we'll back it up. And if you can see here, 5 yard out. Now we're working a 5 yard out, explode out the break. The depth, plant off that inside foot because we're going out, explode to the sidelines. Most importantly, when you're running outs and digs, do not let your receivers lollygag coming out that break. Slow up coming out the break because what happens is that DB gonna undercut, right? So explode out our drop, explode out, work to the sidelines. And during this drill, I'm yelling, run, right? Like I'm pretty amped up during this drill here. The third phase, now we push back. Now we had 10 yard out. We had a 10 yard out. So this is the third phase. We done had a few components within this. Now we're working a 10 yard out with the same point of emphasis, and we're still working through the shoot at around 10 yards, exploding out. And we're gonna do that same thing, a man cut, zone cut. After those reps, then we'll bring the ball out. And now we get to our fourth phase here. Excuse me. Some coaching points here. Run, be in control, get out the break and explode. So what tends to happen is when they're in this 5 yard realm, man, their technique is great, right? They moving, they in control. But once they start getting to deep routes like 15 yard outs and 18 yard comeback, they tend to lose control, like body control. So make sure they're in control. Make sure that your tight end tight end at 6'4", he's not taking 1 yard strides, and your young bucks ain't overstriding. So when we get here, run, be in control, get out of the break, slow. So those are the 4 phases that I call exploding 90s. And then here is just something that I can give to our coach, but we also go over this with our players prior to the meeting. I mean, prior to practice, so they understand what I expect out of this drill too. So same thing. We're gonna see it before we do it on the field. Um, let's see. So just some key coaching points that I came up with: exploding out of breaks, be in control. Don't be running too fast, right? Then you're out of control. Out of control results in incompletions, or worse yet, a turnover. Make sure that the receivers are tracking the balls with their eyes and bringing their hands to the ball to complete the catch. I'm not a fan of body catches, especially start bouncing off the pads, and especially in practice. Try to catch everything with your hands. And then the real separation, especially on these out routes and digs, it happens at the top of the route. That's where you're really creating the separation. So those are some key coaching points there. Really quick, I'll go over man versus zone cuts. If it's a man-to-man coverage, you should be requiring power cuts at the top of the route. Point of emphasis: dropping the hips, be in control, decelerate, get out the break in 3 steps. I'm big on that. No pity patter. Plan off the outside or inside foot, whichever way you're breaking, depending on if it's a dig or out. Use that inside arm, right? If we're going out here to the left, right, we're using that inside arm to whip our torso, right? Some people call it chicken wing, whatever you want to call it. Whip that arm and then bring your head so that can get your body working. Track the ball with your eyes and then explode out a break. Get to your landmark where your QB expects you to be for a completion, right? So and I'm big, and my quarterback, and we have a great relationship. If he's not there, then hey man, don't throw it to him, right? And especially in our flood game, just get it and go. So they know that if they're not where they're supposed to be, they're just not going to get the ball. Um, then we're going to talk about zone coverage versus out and digs. This allows wide receivers to speed roll in and out the break at the top of the route. On a speed cut or a roll, the wide receivers should start the cut 3 yards prior to the designated depth for the route. So, example, on a 15-yard out, the speed cut should, begin around 12 yards and gradually get to 15 yards. We want to be smooth. We want to be fast is smooth. Smooth is fast. That's something that I always say. Let's be smooth in out our breaks and get to our depth. So, plan off that outside foot. Continue to get 1 yard depth horizontally on each step. On that fifth step, the wide receivers should be flattened at the designated depth for the route. And same action, be where the quarterback expects you to be. So that's just one of the drills that I came up with because stop the screen share here. That's just a drill that I came up with because we ran a lot of flood route with a 15-yard out, vertical by number 1, whip delayed out by number 2, 15-yard out by number 3. Or we saw a lot of cover 4. We ran dagger, somebody pushing vert, somebody coming inside. So that was a real point of emphasis for us. So I came up with that drill, just thinking about, we were just missing the mark one day in practice. Like it just wasn't working, and I'm getting frustrated. So you can get mad all you want, but how are you going to fix it? So that's how I came up with a way to fix it. And it turned out to be a really good play for us, especially that 15-yard out in a 3-by-1 flood game. So real quick, let me see, Coach. So I want to show you one of our receivers. He's a senior, Brady Jung. So I worked with him for the last 2 years. He had a great season. Ended up getting a couple D1 offers to Davidson High Academic School out y'all way. So he's a great player. Let me see if I can pull up his highlight here. Give me 1 second. So for us, he ended up having 48 receptions, 861 yards, and he didn't play in 2 games due to injury. So he could have been a 1,000-yard receiver within our offense. So we had 1,000-yard. We had 1,000-yard, close to 1,000-yard receiver. Actually, 2. Our quarterback rushed for 700 some odd yards, and our running back rushed for 900 yards. So we had a pretty balanced offense. So we'll just take a peek, and I'll keep starting and stopping it just to give you a little bit of point of emphasis that he did well. So he's here at the bottom of the screen. Just for us, his stance is pretty good. Everybody's stance is going to be a little different due to body mechanics, but if you watch his front foot, I think that his front foot will drive off. On this route here, this was a game plan route. So we ran a lot of quick outs, speed rolling out. And now this number 11 here, he's tied to getting beat. So we're going to hit him with an out and up. This is maybe in the second quarter here. Right, bum. He got off the ball fast. Right now, the DB is in oh shit mode. His feet are getting close. He plants off his right foot since we're breaking out and up. Now, this is where we talk about stacking, right? He's going to get back on top here, and then he's going to complete this catch. Now, look at the DB. He is in what I call chase and panic mode because this guy, and we went speed out and up to the short side of the field here, and then he just made an excellent catch. See if I can mute the sound there. Here on the backside here, and I'll talk about a little bit quickly. Talk about a little bit more. Somebody asked him about scheme flexibility. He didn't play outside receiver. He played where we need him to play. So all our receivers learn every position, so we can bounce them around and get the matchups that we want. So here on the backside, we got man to man. Now, what he didn't do on this is he didn't stack very good, right? He made this catch a lot harder than it needed to be. We ran a fade route over here, solo. No safety help. But look how far he got pushed outside. He started outside of the numbers. He's getting pushed, and he damn near went out of bounds, right? Like, gets back in, makes a big-time catch and a big-time game for us against our crosstown rival. But I didn't like how far he got pushed out. So now we talked about more about the scheme. Now this young fella's here in the slot, right? We're moving around here. Um, he will close the cushion on it on this fella here, this free safety, and he's likely running the post. In the air raid, this is 6, right? We got 3 verts and 1 converted comeback. Boom, breaking out. Quarterback got the ball out. Now we rolling. Right, great route. Great play here. Now he's back on the outside. We likely running the fade. We like fades against him. Get on top, try to get back on top, stack, touchdown. So we repping this all day long. Back on the backside, solo. Now he's running the corner. Bum. So that's a pretty good play to the short side of the field. So one thing is for certain, he's gonna get inside. We talk about landmarks and where you got to get back out to. He's here in the slot right here, and we got a corner. We're going corner to the short side of the field. You got to stem inside, right? You got to create some space so he can get back to his landmark. He may be a little shorter landmark, but he still caught it. But we're aiming back pylon. We're not aiming flat. So this is a empty smash set. We're going smash to the boundary. Touchdown, man. So that kid really, and you can see it from a different view here. We in empty. There is a free safety here, right? Nice route, and then exploded out of that break and created separation at the top of the route. So we didn't talk about this, but this is a tunnel screen. We ran a ton of tunnel screens here. This is a tunnel screen to the boundary. We did a lot of things to the boundary just to throw off tendencies. We're going tunnel screen here. Bum. We got some linemen out in front. Linemen trying to get active. Couple more here. Backside, when you see that guy on the backside one-on-one, our quarterbacks have the ability to check to a fade. Our quarterbacks can make a lot of checks, actually. But he'll check fade on this. And ended up being offsides on them. He caught it, didn't count, but hell of a play. Now we back here. Now we're talking about a route. I call this a swivel route. In this defense, based on film, if an out route came, the middle of the field opened up. So I had him stem inside, right? And if the safety jumped over the top, he'll make a move on him and work to the middle of the field. Stem, right? We were expecting that safety to be there. He wasn't there. Run by him, right? Because his eyes were, we know from film, his eyes are in the backfield. And the safety here blew that coverage. Ball could have been better thrown, but big time play, explosive play for us. Back in the slot, we run in 6. Across. This is the double post concept. We run a lot of wide cross, but this is double post wide cross. And he just fired out his thing like a cannon. And watch how open he is. Working. Here we go again. He's on the backside. We had the ability to move him. This game we played, we were kind of struggling on offense. We were getting a lot of things going. This is the second half. We on our own 10-yard line. We got to take a shot. And this play ended up being just a momentum turner for us. Same action here. We're working that swivel route, so you'll see him stem inside. We think the safety going to help again. Nope. Same play that we ran on him earlier. Same action, stem inside, break off, and a shot down the field. And he was on a bum leg that game too, and he's still making explosive plays. We'll watch one more play here. It might be a defensive play. We'll stop it if it is. I know, backside, we're working fade. He'll close the cushion. Slant. We're going slant. We try to get in that end zone as much as possible. And same action, we running 6 here from the air raid action. gets in and out of his breaks pretty well. He steps on the DB's toes and creates a separation pretty well. Stop sharing there. So, I mean, that gives you a little bit of kind of how we operate here, and just to give just a little bit more insight. We're a small school. We got 25 players, right? So it ain't like I came from a big school. We had 50 players on the on our roster. We had a small team, and then we demanded a lot of our players, and they responded, right? So that kid, I mean, not your prototypical Asian kid, but he can ball, and he can flat out fly, and he also took coaching really well. He took hard coaching. You can see he wasn't making false steps. He was stacking when he needed to. He was slowing on his brakes. So um, that was just a few highlights that I wanted to show for you. Got any questions for me, Coach? Or you good?
But yeah, I'm good, Coach. I got 2 pages of notes, and this has
Absolutely.
been awesome.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's one question that I wanted to answer for someone here about scheme. So
Yeah.
within our scheme, I don't have positions, right? We have 4 wide receivers, and if you want to play, you got to know them all. You got to know outside, inside. That gives us the ability, like you saw in film, to move that guy to get the matchups that we want. So a rule for us is if the ball's on the hash, we automatically fall in 3-by-1, right? And then if the ball's in the middle, we automatically fall in 2-by-2. Now the receivers on the outside, they're not running across the field. You stay where you're at. Normal offense has got to be the X and the Z. We don't have X and a Z. We got a 1 and a 4, and a 1 and a 4 changes on formations, right? We got a 2 and a 3 in the inside, and that changes off formation. So players can play anywhere, right? And we're able to go tempo really fast. And given that we're a little bit undersized, tempo was our best friend. And then being able to create those matchups based on that. So I don't teach positions. I try to teach them all, especially in the summer, learn it all, have a better understanding of the offense, especially if you got concepts that need players to run people off. Why am I doing this? So it makes sense. So, allows us to get matchups. And then also it allows us to sub players very easy, right? So I don't have backups. We have a depth chart. There's 4 players that's on the field. The 5th can go at any position. So if, player 1 goes down, we'll make some adjustments and that player go in. So it gives us flexibility on the fly to make some moves and make some things happen. But that's it, man. That is a nutshell of what we're trying to do. I'm glad I found a highlight to show like what I'm teaching is actually working. And we had a lot of success. We won I won a state championship. We won a section championship. We lost second round last year. So I'm learning O-line play. I'm getting good at that, but I know wide receiver play. So I appreciate you having me on, Coach, and let me share a few of my gems or nonsense. But the PowerPoint that I showed, I'll send it. It'll be coaches can edit it for their own scheme and see what works for them and just give them a foundation. So somebody showed me as a player, as a coach, so just got to pay it back.
No doubt. Well, Coach has been very gracious with his time to come on and talk, and he's on Twitter. You hit him up, just type in, Mike Hill Jr. It will come up.
Yes, sir.
He'll DM him. He'll get you what you need, and talk wide receiver play. But Coach, I really appreciate you coming on and just doing this for me.
Absolutely. Anytime,
you're
Coach.
real
Anytime,
one.
brother. Appreciate you, Coach Tatum. Thanks, man. Hey, I look forward to yours too, man. I learned a lot. I'm telling you.
Yeah, man. Hey, we've got the clinic coming at the end of the month, and I can't wait to learn from other guys, because people are like, well, you're just doing YouTube. You think you know everything? I'm like, no, I'm doing YouTube because I don't know everything.
Right.
Like I might be talking about some stuff. Like I have a video that I'm going to put out on the drive concept.
Yeah.
Like that's something I'm studying. Like, and I'm just going to talk about what I've learned so far. So
right.
Not that I know everything. It's just what I'm studying. So, and that's why I want to have guys like you on. So heck yeah.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you. And we'll always stay connected, brother. I appreciate you, man.
No doubt. Appreciate it, Coach.
Right on.